Hey fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. We are bringing you the hottest headlines out of the MMA world in our Newsmakers and then find out what John Pollock and Robin Black have to say about it all. Let's get started. Welterweight Tarec Saffiedine was the last fighter to earn Strikeforce's welterweight belt, and John Pollock recently talked to him about his status with the UFC.
I know there has been some Twitter and saying that I signed with the UFC, but on my side I haven't signed anything official. Hopefully it will happen, but on my side I haven't signed any contract or any new contract with the UFC.
Featherweight Dennis Siver has pulled out of his UFC on Fuel TV 7 bout against Swanson, likely due to injury, and will be replaced by Dustin Poirier. Poirier most recently submitted Jonathan Brookins in the first round at the TUF 16 finale, while Swanson is coming off a knockout of Charles Oliveira at UFC 152. And for the first time, Bellator was live on Spike TV for their 85th installment as two champions defended their belts. Lightweight champion Michael Chandler submitted Rick Hahn in the second round, and featherweight belt holder Pat Curran earned a split decision over Patricio Pitbull Frete. That's the latest from the world of MMA. Let's hear what our MMA panel has to say about everything. John Pollock and Robin Black, were you guys impressed by Bellator's premiere on Spike TV?
Well, Sarah, the question is, were the wrestling fans who had tuned in for Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan's wedding impressed? Because they went off the air on Spike TV with Brooke Hogan in a wedding dress, leaning over her fallen father, Hulk Hogan, and telling him, which she thought was off camera, "Dad, my boob is out." So what better crossover could you possibly get with unintentional nudity leading into Bellator's kickoff on Spike TV?
But they also had to deal with a really great matchup on another channel as we saw Oprah Winfrey versus Lance Armstrong. So they had that competition going as well. But despite that, it really was a great kickoff for Bellator on Spike.
Yes, and they kicked off with the Pat Curran Patricio Pitbull Frete fight. We both scored at 48-47 for Curran, retaining this title. I think the real difference maker was the championship rounds, where it seemed that Pitbull got a bit tired, and Curran really let that jab work its way to victory.
Yeah, and Curran, the thing that surprised me in the first three rounds, he did look great. He definitely took round two, in my opinion, but he really wasn't using his jab that well. But by rounds 4 and 5, you got a guy who's a little more tired. You're a crisp boxer who hasn't taken a lot of damage. You've been in rounds 4 and 5, a lot in his career, and then inserted that jab with the 8.5-inch reach advantage. He just really took over in rounds 4 and 5. Great fight.
And early on, it seemed that he was taking something away from the Nate Marquardt school of defending leg kicks by not checking them. Now, you being a fighter can explain this a lot better than I can. What is the thought process about not checking a leg kick?
Well, that leg kick ends up being a little bit of kryptonite for a boxer who's heavy on the front leg. And that, I think, was the difference. In Marquardt, you see that guy really leaning onto that front leg. That's where he generates his power, and you kick that leg out and he can't answer. With Curran, he's a little bit more of has distributed weight a little bit better, so he takes a few of them, but he's not going to be a victim of that all night, and he answers back with the right hand. So, in his case, not checking him is just an option, whereas in Marquardt's case, that was the way to beat him.
We go on over to the second title fight that we saw on Thursday night. We had Michael Chandler submitting Rick Hahn in a second round, rear naked choke. Michael Chandler, his takedown ability and the way he set up that choke with the slam to Rick Hahn. Michael Chandler looking like an unbelievable lightweight. I think some could argue it should be in that top 10 conversation at 155. The problem being that we're not going to see this guy against other top 10 lightweights.
Yeah, I mean, who's the next and the next 155er for him? And that's always going to be an issue for Bellator. When we were talking to Chris Clements. John Ramdeen and I were in Windsor calling fights, and we were talking to Chris Clements, and he was talking about the fact that for young fighters, Bellator's scary because you fight guys like that. You have real, legitimately tough fights, but you don't get as much sponsorship, you don't get as much exposure, you don't get quite as much out of it. So Bellator will have a hard time finding guys for a guy like Chandler, but man, did that guy look good. And he looked so different than he did in the Alvarez fights. It was like two different fighters, both of them scary. You put that together, that's a legit lightweight.
And then the light heavyweight tournament kicking off with Jacob Noe defeating Seth Petrozelli, and then Mikhail Zayats stopping Renato Babalu Sobral with 11 seconds to go in that second round. For Sobral right now and Petrozelli, you really got the sense, especially with that video package with Petrozelli, this was going to be his last run and might be the end of the Kimbo Killer.
Yeah, and hey man, if you're Bellator, it was a great night. Like the championships fights were great, the action was great. I think people will really enjoy it. But it's a drag when you lose both, Babalu and Petrozelli on your first round of the tournament. It'd be nice to have seen those guys go through, but this is the nature of the sport. You can't set up what you want. Guys fight, guys lose, and guys win, and it is what it is.
King Mo will debut next Thursday night, meaning more late Thursday nights for us, but it was an exceptionally late Thursday because both of us watched the Lance Armstrong interview. What were some of the takeaway points for you watching this unbelievable piece of work here constructed?
Well, there's a lot of things we could talk about with drugs and MMA, but really what I took away from it is that Lance Armstrong is a sociopath. This guy literally built himself a world in which he created a bunch of fiction that he required and just kind of wandered through his world doing whatever he wanted, and he's sitting there talking to Oprah. And man, if Oprah can't make you look good, you're not a good dude.
An hour and a half of Lance Armstrong, some fantastic television. I think that there is tons that you can take away from it if you're covering the mixed martial arts industry. Myself and Robin, we test clean on a daily basis, as does Sarah Davis, to the best of our knowledge.
That is very true.
No blood doping
Very
here, no.
true. Thanks, guys. And this Saturday night, 2 heavy hitters square off for the Canadian Heavyweight Championship. Don't miss the battle between Nevin Pikic and Shane Andreessen starting at 9 p.m. Eastern this Saturday on Fight Network. And don't go anywhere. Coming up next, Tito Ortiz talks about his retirement fight and Rousey versus Cyborg.